anonymous hot Houthi pirate dubbed Timhouthi Chalamet is thinking about suing Ethan Klein. That's right, suing him for calling him a terrorist. We're going to get into that today on The Legal Mindset, where we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is a Fast Facts premiere, giving the quick and dirty version of the latest in legal news. And I do apologize. I've been a little bit absent. This is my birthday weekend, so I am quite enjoying it. But I'm glad to bring this one here because this is a hilarious one for you guys tonight. So some of you may or may not know who this guy is, who Tim Houthy is. Of course, that's slang for this guy. This guy goes online by the name Rashid Al-Haddad. A.k.a. Timhouthi Chalamet, for his resemblance, obviously, to Timothée Chalamet from the movie Dune. And he became famous for really getting circulated in social media as the quote-unquote hot Houthi pirate, and for being brought on stream with one Hassan Piker, which had almost no ramifications at all from Twitch. And this was quite a controversy and kind of blew him up on social media, gave him kind of a micro influencer status. Well, of course, as with all people, your 15 seconds of, whether it's fame or shame runs out eventually. At some point, that moment goes away. And his moment was, the moment when he was caught on the boat, and he was there, getting a picture on the boat, and that was his moment of fame, and also going on with Hassan. So now he's attempting to kick up a lawsuit. So here he goes. Here, Rashid Al-Haddad says, "Why did Ethan Klein say that I am a terrorist even though I am not? I am a Yemeni citizen. By the way, weapons in Yemen are just like phones. Anyone can own them. I want to file a lawsuit against Ethan Klein." So we're going to examine this. Does he have a case? Does he not have a case? Especially in U.S. courts, because I'm going to assume here that he'd be suing Ethan Klein in a U.S. court. Now, we're going to talk about Yemen as well at the end. Of course, I'm not a Yemeni lawyer, but I can tell you exactly about the enforceability of Yemeni law in the United States. Spoiler alert, not good. So we're going to get into it with the analysis. So the first thing you're going to look at is what would be suing for? Well, defamation. And a lot of people on the internet do call other people a terrorist. Now, that is not a word in and of itself per se, that is automatically defamatory. It's not one of those words where it would necessarily yet 100% say this is going to go into the camp of defamation. There are certain words that you can say or call people that are more defamatory than others. And there's certain words you can call people that are really not defamatory. If you call people, certain derogatory terms that are just vulgar and they're purely vulgar, but not criminal, they tend to not be defamatory. However, if you're calling someone a criminal, and a terrorist is typically a criminal, that is something that leans on the side of defamatory. So that's what I look at with the analysis of, is a statement defamatory or not? Is it implicating someone as a criminal? When it does, it tends to be more defamatory than not. So that's where that statement generally lands. And there's a lot of people on the internet that are called this day to day. Now, why is this difficult? Well, the standard under New York Times versus Sullivan is malicious, because this guy is undoubtedly a public figure. He puts himself out there on social media. He's very active on social media. He went on a top streamers, stream. So he is a public figure. He's not a private person. So he would be examined under New York Times versus Sullivan standard. So there would need to be malice. So what he says would need to be maliciously untrue. The fact of the matter is, based on photos like these photos, where we see the Tim Houthy here posing, or Mr. Rashid posting with the stolen ship. This is a hijacked ship, a confirmed hijacked ship. He actually goes closer to the ship in another video, but you can see it here. He's also posing in what looks like military attire with an AK over here. So looking at this, it gives you a reasonable belief. Looking at this, a reasonable person, a regular person, a normie, a total normie who knows nothing about this, says, wow, this guy could be a terrorist. I'm not sure. I would need more information. And your duty under a duty of malice is not to have all the information, but just based on the information out there, the information you can look at, the information you can find that's readily available, right? You're going to look at that information. Is it malicious to say this guy could be a terrorist? It's possible he could be a terrorist. I think a reasonable person could say that. However, it is possible that he is not legally defined as a terrorist, i.e., he is not personally a member of a group that is deemed a terrorist, right? He's probably trying to make that argument. He's probably going to say, I'm Yemeni and Klein is criticizing me for Yemeni. Okay, maybe that might even be a fair argument. I'll even entertain that fact, right? Give him a benefit of the doubt for a second. But guess what? He would still lose at a case in the United States because the legal standard is higher. So with the U.S. Legal standard here, the likely result would be a case to be dismissed, right? So the U.S. claim would likely be dismissed either at motion to dismiss or at summary judgment. He would likely, if he brought the case and even had the money to bring the case, they would outright dismiss it, or it would get to summary judgment. They'd say, look, you don't meet the bar you don't meet the level of malice. You really can't prove that Ethan Klein is being malicious and he's lying completely about this. You'd have to put more proof out there that you are definitively not a member of a terrorist group, because at this point, what it seems like is he is grifting off his grift. The quote unquote hot Houthi pirate is grifting off being a sexy terrorist and trying to make terrorism sexy. And if that is what he is marketing himself as, then people would not be mistaken to take himself as a terrorist. So if he's marketing himself as a terrorist, as the kind of bad boy terrorist, the hot bad boy terrorist, the rebel who's fighting back, well, if people interpret you as you market yourself, that's not malicious. Now, it may be all a game. It may be all LARPing. In fact, I think it is. I mean, this individual looks kind of soft. I think there's a reason to believe that he's not actually a terrorist. He's not actually like a hardened guy. He's out there watching One Piece. He's probably like some, Yemeni weeb, whatever, right? Who just wants to cosplay as a terrorist, right? That would be a reasonable alternative explanation. But guess what? You've marketed yourself as that. You put yourself out as that. So it's hard to put that back in the box. Now, the one thing that could happen, and this is going over to Yemen, is he could get an unenforceable Yemeni judgment or a local tribal court ruling. So in Yemen, there's, as in many countries, it's very, very common, right? There's often customary law, what's called customary law of dispute resolution, meaning the centralized legal system is weak. And that exists in many countries all over the world. Therefore, the customs that are applicable, the local customs, the local ways of life, they can be types of rulings. But getting some local tribal ruling in Yemen is not going to be enforceable in a U.S. court. They're going to laugh at that and toss it out. It's just not going to work. So as much as he might have that piece of paper at some point from some Yemeni, local tribal yokel, that's not going to work in the United States or any big boy country with real legal systems. So that said, likely a social media stunt for attention due to lawsuits trending. What he sees right now and what this guy is trying to do is he is trying to hijack the headlines. Right now, lawsuits are hot. The Klein lawsuit is big, and he wants to clout jack off of that, get back in the algorithm, get trending again, and get attention for his particular causes. And you know what? I understand it. I can't even blame people for trying to hijack the algo. However, I can blame them for making up nonsense lawsuits. And this is absolutely a nonsense lawsuit that would go absolutely nowhere. Let me know what you guys think of Timothy Chalamet versus Klein in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?